Hello and welcome to another video from me, Rough Swordsman, Wargamer. It's another Open the Book, and this book is a brand new one in the series from Historic Wings and Thomas Van Hare, and this turned up out of the blue, so many thanks to Thomas for sending it to me. I believe I might have been the first person on the planet to receive a copy. I say out the blue, but when you see what the subject is, it could be out of the black because it covers covert black operations. And that's quite fitting because even though Thomas let me know that this was in development quite a while ago, I was sworn to secrecy until I received my copy. So that in itself was a bit of a black op. But anyway, the book is Overflight, a solitaire Cold War game. And you may recognize on the cover there the famous U-2 spy plane. So, what's all this about? Overflight is a solitaire reconnaissance game in a narrative style. As the director of the CIA's U-2 program, Project Aquatone, your pilots will fly deep into Soviet-controlled territory with the mission of taking photographs and gathering information about the latest developments in the Soviet Union's military arsenal. The president asks, are the Soviets winning the arms race? No one wants another Pearl Harbor. This means that we must have knowledge of military forces and preparations around the world, especially those capable of a massive surprise attack. President Dwight D. Eisenhower. So, designed by Thomas Van Hare, this is the second war game of the Special Missions collection. The first one being SOE Lysander. And your all-black U-2 spy planes will fly into danger, uncovering whether Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev's claims about developments in strategic bombers, nuclear weapons, and intercontinental ballistic missiles are true, or empty rhetoric. It's 1956, and the greatest arms race of the Cold War is underway. So, complexity 5 out of 10, age range 10 plus, number of players 1, of course these are solitaire games, time to play 10 to 60 minutes. This book, like all the others Historic Wings and Thomas have published, are available easily from Amazon.com or Indeed.uk. And just like the other books in the series, there is a little bit of arts and crafts. And if you don't mind doing that to print things such as the counters and the maps and that, I'll leave a link in the description that'll take you over to BGG, Board Game Geek, and you'll be able to download them from there. However, if you're not so inclined, just like all the other games in the series, there will be a boxed version. You'll still have to have this for the rules, but things like cards, counters, maps are all done for you, printed by Blue Panther. And this one, I understand, has a canvas map in it. So there we are, options. This comes in at 114 pages. Now, don't worry, it's not 114 pages of rules. There are, I believe, about 19 pages. The rest is your charts, pictures of the maps, the counters, an extensive playthrough, and a ton of background historical information. A lot of this information was still top secret 10 years ago. So Thomas, with his connections, has been able to design and develop this new book. So let's have a look. Proof for release 2013, so not that long ago. Here we've got some of the other books. Some he's already published, of course, others in development. So, game rules, yes, 19 pages. And it takes you through step by step what you have to do. Nice introduction to this game. how to play, overview, game scale, composition of the forces. You'll of course be flying the Lockheed U-2 Angel, sometimes called the Dragon Lady, CIA sponsored, and the pilots who were drawn from United States Air Force and indeed the RAF were under contract to the CIA. Not sure if the RAF were, and they could renew their contracts yearly, I suppose, if they think, no, this is too dangerous. Here we've got all about the sort of dice and tables that you'll use. There's D10s, D12s. You'll use D6s for having D36 results and D66 results. That's all explained there. Rerolls, table driven and sequence of play based. Just explaining that those dice rolls and tables determine some but not all of the outcomes of the game. Victory points and then game components. Now, I could be wrong, and Thomas will tell me if that's not the case, but the map that's in this book doesn't look like it's big enough. So you'll either have to go to BGG, print one off, or indeed get the nice map in the box set. So explaining everything about the map, there's the combat map, the combat diagram. It's a little bit different, the combat in this, and you'll use these type of counters, because I didn't realize that the Soviets were trying to shoot down with their surface-to-air missiles with their planes, but also were trying to ram them. So it was suicide missions, much like the kamikaze pilots of the Japanese Air Force at the end of the Second World War. That was quite an eye-opener. So in the combat phase, you'll be dodging not only SAMs, but gunfire from the jets and ramming. But there are some sort of chits that you can use to try and negate that. And here they are, the skill chits. You've got the skill chits, or the pilots have got the skill chits. You, as director of the CIA, because that's the part you play, get your own chits as well. See, they were unarmored and unarmed. So they're at the mercy. And it got worse as time went on. So explaining all these chits, the status markers you'll use on the map, CIA pilot roster, mission calendar, which we'll have a look at. There's a ton of missions in this. It's not the same missions you play every time you play it, because you can play a single mission or indeed a campaign. See how you get on. The mission diary, Thomas always encourages you to create a narrative for the games. So you can either write those down separately in a pad, or there is on Amazon, I believe, a mission diary that you can purchase to write in your experiences. Black Book and flight plans, we'll have a look at that. And then the sequence of play, SOPs, how to set things up. So you'll get your director skills, your initial pilot skills, roll for your pilots, then get your missions, the weather. Well, the weather is always clear at your primary air base, but if you have to come back and land somewhere else, the weather might not be as pleasant. You assign a pilot. If you don't like that, you've got a chance to change it. And your mission. Have secret meetings with Eisenhower to extend the missions if you are lucky enough. Prepare the mission map. And then take off. Next is when you're in flight, adjusting fuel. And of course, as fuel is used up, the plane gets lighter and can fly higher. And higher is safer, Thomas says. So adjusting your fuel, altitude and moving, rolling for events, then the combat, where they're going to be chucking everything at you, and then proceed to the next round, where you're moving in waypoints, little squares on the map, very reminiscent of the Hunters and Western Flying Ace and that sort of thing. And then combat. It's quite abstract, a little bit more involved, I think, than some of the other games, in that there are two sort of maps you're going to be using, but it's explained very well in the book, of course. But the basic concepts of combat, resolving the attacks, applying your chits to try and move out the way of these SAMs and these planes trying to ram you and their gunfire. So that's all here. Applying damage and sort of going through it phase by phase. A detailed description there. Landing and debriefing. Awards and any skills you might get. Skills go up after each mission, I think, or the amount of chits you get. Accidents and incidents. And if you want to carry on, contract renewals. And then diplomatic occurrences, because you may have to land at another airbase because of damage, and they might not be quite as sympathetic to your calls. Or they are sympathetic, but a little bit annoyed that you landed without asking permission. So you've got that, diplomatic protests, resolving those. Campaign end, we've got some supplementary tables here mentioned. Special rules. Gliding, if you run out of fuel. And some rule clarifications there. That's it, that's the rules. And then we've got a very in-depth example of gameplay. And as Thomas says, it doesn't do the setup phases. They are pretty self-explanatory. But here's the map. And these are what they call the waypoints. We'll have there's a bigger picture in the book. We'll look at that when we get to it. So he takes you completely through it from takeoff through the low threat waypoints and into the high threat, because I think I mentioned it. Some of these waypoints have got hearts on. That means they're friendly. Some haven't, and some have got sort of clubs from a deck of cards symbol, meaning they're high threat. The Dirty Bird. That was the version that had plastered all on the underside anti-radar tiles that actually didn't work, as it turned out. I'm really in trouble here. Above 70,000 feet would have been safe, but now I'm only at 68,500. That's high up. So this goes on for quite a while, showing you the combat. Here's the combat map, very abstract, as you can see. And these are all the things that are attacking you. And in this example, he had to end his flight in Iran. But let's see what the weather is. There we are. That's the playthrough, very extensive playthrough. And throughout the playthrough, Thomas is doing that narrative diary. So you can see how he writes his. Then all the tables. Here's the setup tables. We've got the director skills and the pilot skills. Alternate setups. Here's a historic roster you can use rather than making up your own, which you can do, of course. Aircraft inventory, mission assignments. So you'll roll a D36, and then depending on what you get, you'll look up the mission for the year you're doing. Takeoff, flight operations, adjusting fuel and all that. Random events, we don't like them, do we? Yes, I love them. Interceptors and SAMs coming at you, and then landing and debriefing. Here's your diplomacy and politics tables, those supplemental tables that were mentioned earlier on. And what happens if you get shot down or have to crash land? Are you captured? And if you've seen the film Bridge of Spies, you'll know all about that. Here's that map. Let me turn the book this way. And yes, as I said, I don't think this is big enough for the counters, as you'll see in a minute. But here are the waypoints. You've got various places you can take off from. And I'm not sure if you can see, some have got the club's suit symbol there, showing that they are high risk. Got some with hearts, saying you're pretty safe there. The ones without, I think, are sort of sympathetic, but would like you to ask permission if you have to land there. Put your chits here. Fuel for what type of U2 plane you're flying, the weather track, and how much damage your plane gets. So very involved and looks immense fun. Here's the combat map. As you can see, very abstract. I think you start in the middle here at your altitude and you're moving, trying to avoid things attacking you. And I'm not 100% with the combat yet. I've only had a quick read through. I think when you get to the either ends, you can't do much. And the combat diagram, this tells you, I think, how much damage the enemy will do depending on where it is around you. Campaign game, how you've done in that if you're doing the campaign game. Here are the counters. As you can see, they're a little bit bigger than those map spaces. Here's the other side. And some more here. These look like the director's chits. And then we're into the background history, and there's a ton of it, as there is in all of Thomas's games. Here's the famous person, Powers, who crashed and was swapped for a Soviet spy. Detailed in the film Bridge of Spies with Tom Hanks. Good film. Here's one of the other famous pilots. So here's the Black Book. And here we've got who the director is of the CIA. You can be you or the real person. Your pilot roster, again, people you know, or use the historic one in the book. What planes you've got. So these will have to be printed out. And here's your mission calendar from 56 all the way up to 1960. So in the summer there are 6 missions. They've changed the aircraft type there, U2A. Then the last 2 missions are U2B. So there's 6. But as you'll see, more than 6 missions for 1956. So what have we got there? We've got 6, 7, 8, 9. This carries on until spring of 60. Quick reference, like here we are. Here's the missions. So you see there are more missions than you've got spaces for on the mission log. So lots of replayability. More missions than you can shake a stick at. Ending up in with Operation Sunspot. And then background historical information, info about the planes, some great pictures. Glossary of terms used in the U2 program. Code name of operations. An overview of the strategic situation at the time, 56. So tons of historic reading to do. Value of U2 intelligence, the origin of Area 51. recruiting the pilots, how they did that. Yeah, sheep dipping. They were sort of turned into civilians to fly for the CIA because they had no pilots. Review of technical challenges, and crikey, there must have been, because it was a fragile plane flying tens of thousands of feet above the surface. Even helmet design issues. Evading interceptors and SA-2 missiles. So, as you can see, it gets your money's worth. Strategy strikes. Not a particularly, in my opinion anyway, a handsome looking plane. It's a little bit ugly, I think. Your view may differ, of course. The Black Book, new procedures for the U-2 missions, and then a complete timeline which goes all the way past the flights 59, 60, and even a look into the future 61 and afterwards. Key targets. Recommended reading. Game design notes. And then the smiling, happy, handsome face of Thomas Van Hare himself. He's American but lives in Sweden. Artist and designer, of course, as you can see. Former search and rescue pilot. And a former senior White House and Pentagon official. Maybe that's how he's got clearance to bring this book out. But there we are. That is Overflight, a solitaire Cold War game designed by Thomas Van Hare and Historic Wings. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Lots of info in there. And as I said at the beginning, available from Amazon now, and the maps and counters and that can be printed off on BGG, so you don't have to destroy your book. And I'll leave a link for that in the description. If you don't fancy doing the old printing, watch out for the boxed version. But as I say, you must have the rules here, because the box only contains the bits you didn't want to make, and they are a high quality. Blue Panther. Well, if you did enjoy the video and you haven't done so already, it would be great if you would consider subscribing to the channel. It really does help. Pushing the like button, the thumbs up underneath the video, is another thing that gets the old algorithm going. So if you could do that, that would be splendid. And if you want to be informed of other content the channel uploads, then push the bell. But make sure you push all notifications, because sometimes YouTube forget to tell you. Leave a comment. I know these solo Historic Wings games are very popular. What do you think? Let me know, because I love to read them. Thanks as always to my subscribers. Thank you so much for putting up with me. And just before I go, if you wish to support the channel a little bit further, well, now you can buy the channel a coffee, and there's a link for that in the description, or you can push the super thanks button underneath this video. If you decide to do that, those little donations certainly help the channel to keep ticking along, so thank you. Okay, hope to see you in the next video. So until then, as always, you take care and goodbye.